whether that can be attributed to being some function of their practice experience or not. We used a heartbeat detection task where individuals, after some training, are listening to a sound, beep, 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 and simply have to indicate for each trial block whether it was occurring at the same interval as their own heart rate or different. Used as an index of kind of visceral awareness, at least heart rate awareness. Short-term meditators had significantly more correct responses than did the long-term meditators or the controls, consistent, we think, with greater attention to bodily state. We also did a videotape structured interview, and this is the aspect of the data that's taken the longest to analyze because it involves a lot of transcription and scoring. We asked everybody to freely describe one strong positive and negative emotion experience that occurred in the last 6 months. And then the examiner probed them to elaborate on their experience, asking about thoughts, feelings, action impulses, and actions, and various kinds of imagery in the experience. Transcribed and coded by 2 independent raters. Rater agreement was high, kappas were above 0.8. And the coding scheme was based on theories of emotions. So scoring in terms of feelings, both bodily and non-bodily feelings, thoughts, evaluative and non-evaluative, actions, and imagery. And I'm not going to give you a summary of all of that data, but just highlight some of it as it converges with some of the other measures we were taking. The short-term meditators, again, seemed to be giving more attention to bodily experience. So in these reports about their emotional experiences in the past 6 months, significantly greater number of bodily feeling reports that were components of those, correlated with their self-reported attention to emotion, and it negatively correlated with years of practice. In other words, the longer the amount of practice, the less these reports of bodily feelings. We also took measures of heart rate variability as an index of cardiac vagal tone. It was based on a resting heart rate for 5 minutes in each of 2 separate sessions, thought to reflect parasympathetic influence on the heart through the vagus nerve, and typically high vagal tone or high heart rate variability is associated with greater sensitivity to emotional stimuli and greater, at least effortful, emotion regulation. It was recorded twice, once after this interview, which can be thought of as an arousing and potentially stressful experience, and then at the beginning of a second session where the interview had not occurred. It could be seen more as a simple resting kind of session. The short-term meditators differed significantly, again, from the other groups on the measures of vagal control during this first session, but no differences between the groups for the measures taken during the second one. So only after this presumably stressing interview experience. And when the measures were compared across sessions, short-term meditators showing significantly greater vagal control or heart rate variability under stress than at rest. So to summarize all of this, what do we think is going on? Well, the short-term meditators, those with less than 10 years of experience, seem to be paying more attention to emotion. They seem to be showing a stronger positive relationship between attention and self-reported emotional clarity, report more bodily feelings, and show greater heart rate variability or vagal control after a stressor, maybe due to the increased attention to emotion and this consequent emotion regulation effort. The long-term meditators, in contrast, they're the ones reporting higher emotional clarity that's not related to attention to emotion. They don't differ in their self-reported emotional experience, in their attention to emotion, or in heart rate variability. And the ones that report higher clarity show lower physiologic and experienced arousal, as well as greater subtle positive facial expression in response to the masked emotional pictures that I described previously, thus seeming to be regulating emotion earlier in the emotional elicitation process. Remember, the masking is in a sense cutting off conscious, any possibility for conscious efforts at emotion regulation. So what we think might be going on, and these are hypotheses for future studies that we hope to pursue, is that this practice in quiescent attention to experience enables this kind of a shift from attachment, that is, grabbing onto experience of all kinds, including emotional experience, and reactivity, to a greater equanimity, and that occurs over a number of years. So that initially, attention to awareness of bodily feelings, some other data I didn't show you, the use of cognitive actions to regulate emotion after they arise, as well as physiologic activity in response to emotional stressors seems to increase. But later, clarity increases, explicit attention to emotion may no longer be needed, clarity may be conferring a kind of emotional regulatory skill, so that attention to subtle emotion cues may become automatized or outside of consciousness, and appraisal of self-relevance may decrease. How this is in response to my need hierarchy may drop down, if indeed this computing of self at rest is decreasing, or at least being able to be let go of more quickly. Other questions we're interested in addressing is, how do Zen practitioners of various years of practice and controls differ in not only their autonomic physiologic response, but also regional brain fMRI bold signals when we expose them specifically to visual images of others in distress, both films as well as static pictures. And given some of the previous work of Antoine Lutz and colleagues, focus here would be on the ventromedial frontal anterior cingulate, amygdala, anterior insula, and premotor regions. We'd also like to know about whether that changes from pre to post intensive meditation retreat experience. A number of studies in the area of contemplative science demonstrating that longer concentrated practice in these retreat situations impacting, for example, attention greater than simply what accrues to daily shorter term sitting practice. And finally, do long-term meditators show more compassionate social interaction? It's one thing to demonstrate amplification of responses in the brain that are thought related to compassion, but do we actually see some change in their compassionate social interaction? So I've been talking with Matthias Mell about the possibility of his ear methodology being able to sample at random intervals from individuals' social interaction, at least that which is auditorily recordable, and seeing whether in fact there are ways to develop a scoring system to index that kind of interaction. So I hope what I've been able to do in the brief time that we've had is suggest to you that despite the kind of picture that meditation often has in the general public, my mind is especially empty today, the one monk is saying to the other, that there actually is a great deal going on. And a great deal that I think is of interest to social neuroscience, that in interaction